All right. So we're going to get started here and want to welcome everybody to our the month. This is June. It's the third Mondays at 2 o'clock. We hold our voter skills training, and today we've got I think some topics that are going to be very useful to us as volunteers, but also when you see the capabilities that the Secretary of State has, then it really does make you appreciate there are tools that we probably aren't as aware of as we need to. And so I'm really appreciate Brian Lorge and Roger Ellis um, doing the training for us today. And the agenda, as we're going to kick it off, is really focusing on AlabamaVotes.gov and what the capabilities are and some of the data that's hidden on that website that you may not have ever checked out in the past. And then after he's done, then Roger's going to pick up and talk about voter ID and getting it, making sure that you and anybody that you're helping, making sure that their voter ID is up to date, ready to go, and also talk about free voter IDs. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about, if you need to vote absentee for the municipal election or any other election, looking at ways that you can make sure you don't lose your vote. And so right now I am going to hand this off to Brian, and let me spotlight you here. All right. There you go, Brian.
All right. Hopefully this will work like we planned. All right. Kathy, is that showing kind of split screen, sort of?
Yes, it is.
And can people read it? I hope it gets pretty small, especially on the slides, but to do it the way I want to try, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If there's any issues, just let me know. Excuse me. And Kathy, again, thanks for the opportunity to present today. Kathy asked me to do a demo of the Alabama Vote site. And I'll be honest with you, when she first asked me, I had no idea how to do it. I mean, I said, man, that's pretty dry. And how do you go to the site? And then we talked a little bit more, and somehow it said, oh, well, I'll do my top 10 sites. And then when I do my top 10 sites, that will get us through most of the things I think that are important for people to know about what's on there. Again, and I'm going to try to emphasize mostly voter services stuff. And the agenda, what I'm going to talk about, again, just a little general information about the website, show you kind of the layout, explain the format I use for some of my slides that hopefully they'll be useful to you. And then I'll go over my top 10. Again, it's AlabamaVotes.gov. You can just type in AlabamaVotes.gov. The actual website, it comes up as that one with the Secretary of State website, and it takes you right there. It's developed and maintained by the Secretary of State. So there's some built-in bias on some of the opinions on there, but I guess if you're Secretary of State, you get to do that. And again, I'm going to try to emphasize the voter services stuff. And now, that's not what I wanted to do. I was trying to get rid of, there we go. It was the pictures were covering up stuff. Again, there's Wes Allen on the cover. And this is kind of the meat of the website as far as I'm concerned. There's 10 sections there, and on the right side of your screen is actually live on the internet. The one on the left, I want to add some color. Now, so what I've done, the ones highlighted in green, I'm going to talk about in some detail. The ones in yellow, I'm just kind of going to, I have highlighted there, but those are the two topics Roger's going to cover, so I won't get into much detail on that. And the ones in red, other than letting you know they have good information, I'm going to show it. But again, if anyone wants to purchase a voter list, looking at the campaign finance information, which is interesting, but I don't think helps voter services much. And amendments are so confusing. I don't know what to say. But no, the amendments, if there are amendments, there's where the information is. But again, that's not something that we would use in voter services. So I'm going to go through that. And then the way my slides are set up, and I think Kathy's going to send these out to everyone on my top 10 list. It's just the sample format. The number is just, hey, where it is on my list. The other thing next, it tells you kind of what the subject is. And then in the subtitles there, like on this one, it says election information in parentheses years. That ties back to on the right, like it's in the election information section, which is right there. So that will tell you which of these 10 sections go to get if you want to get to this. Um, and I have a link, and I think all of them I finally got to work with Kathy's help to make sure I didn't duplicate them. The links directly to the site should be on there. I did want to say the election information, and a lot of my top 10 is out of that section. The election information, they seem to update that every 2 years for the federal, state, and county elections, and not in the odd years when there's municipal elections. So I put 20XX. That means I'm generally using the 2024 one, with one exception. The calendar, they already have the 2026 one up. And you can go back, and I'll show you here real quick on the election information site. They have data going back all the way from to 2001 to 2026. So there's a lot of information there. Generally, I use the 2024 one. And it's interesting how it does. Oh, wait a minute, I went to the wrong. I want to show you the 2023 one. It's interesting on the 2023 one, when you go there, they've got the 2024 voter guide. So I'm assuming what they're doing is when they update the guides, they actually go back and update the old links to put you on the most current guide. But 2026 stuff, I think, will start coming online here shortly, once we get through the municipal elections. So again, so the year I put in there tells you what year I pulled that guide from, and most of them are 2024. So getting into my top 10 list, and what my top 10 list is not that important. You could have a total 10 top different. I think it just gets me a way to get through the website. And whatever information you find in here, hopefully you find it useful. Whatever's important to you, use it. Again, the top 7 through 10 are really more election related. We'll answer questions that will come up in elections. And then the top 6 are probably more voter service stuff, which I consider the registration part, VRR, and then getting into get out the vote campaigns. So, but number 10 is the district maps. Again, they tell the voter which district they vote in. And one of the things I don't like about this particular site, it only covers the state map. So it covers congressional districts, state senator, state representative, and school board. And it allows you to see the description of the districts and when it was approved. And I say, but I think if I really want this information, I'm going to go to my voting information, because that shows you the local offices also. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like again here. And again, when I talked a little bit about bias, they seem to make a big point about the congressional maps are the ones that were court ordered congressional districts, not the ones that were approved. They'll put little comments like that through at the website, and you can go to this site right here, and it will load up with a map of Alabama in a minute, hopefully. And when it gets done loading, there's a place right here you can add your address, and it will pop in, and I can put in I can put in my address. It'll show you I'm right in the middle of Congressional District 5. Um, Again, they also have this little video about how to export your voting districts to a CSV if you need to do that. So that there's some good information on this website. And again, on the state Senate, the state house and state board, it's more, and you click on the maps, it's just a static map that shows you all the districts in the state. And I was talking to Kathy before we started the things. I don't go when you get into the legal description, it describes it by the census tracts, and I've done a little bit of research, and I still have a very tough time understanding what a census tract is. And if you wanted to go say, gee, what areas in my district, there's a lot of data you have to go through manually as far as I can tell to see what's covered. So that's what's the information on the state district maps. Going on to number 9 is the provisional ballot guide. And again, this one contains very detailed information on the provisional ballot status. It has the reasons. There's 7 reasons why someone may have to do a provisional ballot, and it goes into more detail on that. And it's kind of the step-by-step guide for the provisional ballot officer at a polling location, how to fill out the paperwork, what you need to explain to the voter. And let me make sure I go this one. This one is under the election information. And again, I use 2024 and it's right here to just give you an idea of what it looks like. Again, this gets into very, detailed instructions about, for the poll workers, for the provisional ballot officer, board of registers, the whole provisional ballot process. So that's covered under that one. Next is the poll worker guide, and it is very similar. It's right here, and it gives you very similar information for what to expect in the polling location, and it covers just about everything that should happen in a polling location. It could happen in the polling location. And again, it explains the various workers you're going to run into when you get there, from the registration clerk that's going to get you signed in, the ballot clerk that hopefully gets you the right ballot if you have issues, the provisional ballot officer, and if you need to talk to the boss, the inspector, what they do. Again, it talks about a lot of activities, um, like a poll watcher. Your poll watcher, what it tells you what poll watcher can and can't do. Um, Student interns, about what about photography in the polling place? What can you take and what can't you take? And I say you just kind of have all this kind of information. How long can you stay in the polling location? So there's a lot of good information if someone asks you a question. Voting assistance is one. Again, who can help you? If you have someone that's going to the polling location, say I'm going to need assistance, it tells you who can help you and who can't help you. It also tells you about spoiled ballots, and if you make a mistake, what to do with the ballot. So again, there's a lot of information basically about what takes place. Oh, one more before I forget. And one of our favorites, an active voter, since the Secretary seems to want to make everybody an active voter. If you show up at the polling location, you're an active voter, it tells you the process, what to happen. If you're in the right place, what to do. If you're in the wrong place, what to do. The real bad one is if you're not on the voting rolls. But anyway, so that's in the poll worker guide. Next is the Alabama election cycle calendar. Be back up here for a minute again. I like this. It covers all elections up to 2030. So if you want to see this, and that's on upcoming elections, and it's down here at the, let me make sure I get the right one. That's the right one. So this one started in 2016 and it goes through 2030. It gives you what offices are up, what year, and it even goes particularly by senators, all the state offices, Board of Education, and all the judicial stuff. And it even gets into the county level about which counties once probate judges up, and it gives you the terms. They serve 6-year terms, sheriff's a 4-year term. The one thing that's not up to date here, I'll show you at the bottom, is municipal elections. When they changed the municipal elections to off years, they obviously haven't updated this because it shows no municipal elections in 2025, but it shows them in 2026. So they haven't obviously updated this in a while. But that gives you, and I like having that. If people, if someone wants to know, hey, when is Senator Britt up for election again? Here's a place you can go look and say, oh, she was elected in 22. Her next will be 28, and any of the elections you can find out when the various elections will be. Number 6 is another calendar, and this one is just the opposite. This is the calendar that's for 1 year, and the 2026 one is already online. And let me get to that one for a minute. And this one is just opposite. It only covers 1 year, but it's got infinite detail. If you want to know anything about the 2026 election, this gives you here. It gives you the dates of the primary, the runoff, the general election. It gives you the filing dates, when when anybody wants to run for one of the two major parties, when they have to have that done with the state party, which this year is January 23rd. And there's lots of confusion because, in the presidential year, that date is actually moved up to November. And already we have a lot of people say they're running, but they officially, don't, you can declare till January 23rd.
Brian,
It's also,
Can you show the dates that you're talking about just so that they can get an idea of when things are happening?
well, let me see.
You could, yeah, zoom in.
Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on that and see. So the primaries, May 19th is the primary. June 16th will be the runoff, if there is any. The general election is November 3rd. Um, and I'm trying to find let me see if I find these. And see, we already have a lot of these dates of things that are going on. They're already, whoops, I went all the way to 26. I'm looking for,
There's a lot of information in here about absentee ballots when those are available that I think,
yeah,
it's even if we can't help people fill out the the actual application unless they meet the categories that we are allowed to, then but that this is still useful information as far as when the ballots are actually available.
yeah, it actually gives you the date 55 days out that when the ballots are available. January 23rd is the date for, the state parties need to declare if you're going to be a candidate. But it's interesting. It also gives the parties the option. It's up to each party if they want to do a primary. If they decide they just wanted to have a convention, select people, they have that option in Alabama. Hopefully, they're not doing that. And then the other date that's interesting to me, because I've been asked this question when it's too late. On the 19th, which is the day of the initial primary, any independent candidates and candidates for minor parties have to declare by that date. I've had people way past the primary say, gee, I think I want to run as an independent. How do I do it? And I say, well, the only way we can do it now is a write-in, because the to get on the ballot date is already passed. That's the date of the first primary. And again, there's a lot. It has all the dates. Kathy, you're right about when absentee ballots have to be mailed back and stuff. I'm looking for the date 50, somewhere in here. It does give you the date 55 days. So if you want to know when absentee, um,
Be back in late March, maybe.
yeah, that sounds about right.
There it is. But
Okay.
Judge, I thought I saw it. Anyway, there's a lot of very useful, but down deep in the
Here
weeds
it is. It's
info.
this one right here, second from the bottom. Probate judgments furnished. Oh, that's uh,
That's the
50. Well,
list.
yes, the 55 days. Absentee ballots and applies must be delivered to absentee election manager no later than 55 days before the primary. So that date is March 25th, if you want to know. And you can do that for the run. When runoffs, it's tough, so they don't have 55 days anymore. But for the general election, they'll tell you what the 55 days. So if you apply early, and you can apply. I don't know of any deadline. I mean, you can't apply. I don't know if you could apply today for next year, but I know you can apply more than 55 days, and they'll just hold your application until they get the supplies and mail them out. So, but this one, like I says, has all the dates. It has, the state holidays on there, which sometimes messes things up. Last year, because a Monday was a state holiday, the deadline for absentee ballots to be delivered in person was actually on a Friday, which is unusual, but all that will be specified. Let me catch up my notes. And number 5 is the photo voter ID guide. And back up, and that one is right here. And for some reason, well, they don't put the cover page on there, but that is a photo ID guide. Um, And this one, again, is another one gets into a great deal of detail for, I'd say, 95% or more of the cases when you know about voter IDs. It's in the voter guide itself, so you can just look at that document. So I'm not going to talk much more about the ID guide. Um, okay, voter drive guidelines. This is one I really like, and I think because we do voter drives a lot. It gives guidelines for conducting a voter registration. It's got a section, and you can see that number 5 right on that screen. These are the parts that definitely have to be filled out for the registration to count. There are questions on there that are optional, but these however many A through G. You need to make sure you fill those out. It has a cover page, which is at the very end. You can use to, when you go to turn this into the registrar, it kind of tell you, who did it, which organization, address, and all that information. In case they have any questions, they may get in contact you. I know, and I've done it in two counties here in North Alabama, Limestone and Madison, and both of those, rather than the cover sheet, they just have they have a sign-in sheet that just takes this information on, but it's the same information. And so that's a good. I like using this guide when you're preparing. It's got some frequently asked questions, so I think that's a good guide as you're getting ready to go do a voter drive about make sure you're current. Number three is the Absentee Election Manager Guide. And again, this gives, this is the guide that is written for the absentee election manager, telling him what he's supposed to do. And let me see where that is.
It's I see it down. You just there. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, these are all documents loaded on the website, so you can print them out. And I'll just go a little bit over the table of content that talks about the AEM and who he is and years that they're running and stuff. But then it gets into the procedures about, mailing them out when they return. Roger's going to get into the thing about how you can mess it up and why they can reject it. So I won't get into much details. But again, that's another good guide. If someone's asking you absentee ballot questions, a lot of good information in this guide. The voter guide, and that I think was, let me see, I think that one's right up top. The 24. And again, they didn't put the cover page on there, but there's the guides. And again, it's just got a lot of good information. It will tell you, the offices that are on the ballot, what the election dates are, and it gives you kind of the registration dates and all that, how to register, tells you the crossover voting rules, voter ID requirements. And one caution I have in here, occasionally they struggle with dates in this guide. I know like last year, Roger and I had a discussion because of that Monday holiday. They had the wrong date for when the ballots, I think, had to be returned. So you have to make sure that you have the latest and greatest. If it's something that's critically important, I would check the actual law or something else. Like I say, occasionally this guy does have wrong information. And my number one is the my voting information. Um, let me go back one more level. Which is right here. And like I said, I like this one better because you put in your name, address. You can check critical information like your registration status. Hopefully, it says you are active and not inactive at your polling location, which it's not often, but in Limestone County, the last cycle they did change to polling locations, so it tells you do have the right polling location. It tells you what elections you can vote in. And one thing most people don't pay attention to, because again, it's kind of confusing, is it tells you what ballot style you should have, which is a good thing when you go to the polling location. If you know you should be having a G2 in the general election, make sure they give you a G2 to get you the right offices. I can't remember, it was in 22, I think, in Lauderdale County, they had a problem because of redistricting, and about 50 voters didn't get to vote in the state representative primary, and the difference between second and third place was 14 votes. So that left it was on the Republican side. So it left up the Republican Party to figure out what to do with those votes. So it's a good thing to know your ballot style before you go. And it also gives you, if you're not sure, if you wanted to find out for someone else where their polling location is, it does have this polling location search where you can just type in a residential address and it will tell you where the polling location is. So that's my number one thing. I didn't include on the list the voter registration update because I'm kind of hoping everyone is already familiar with this one. Um, but it allows you to do online registration. And I kind of push online registration quite a bit. I've been with Kathy and Roger many times doing voter um, registrations at schools. And again, you can only use the online one if you have a valid Alabama driver's license or an Alabama non-driver's identification card. It seems like when we do those, there's always a handful of people that can't do it online. So I end up doing the handwritten ones. And I'm kind of shocked at the penmanship of some people about being able to read it. So I think it's easier and quicker to do the online one. If you can't do that, you can download or you can do the fillable form here, print that one out. And if you don't have a printer or something, you can get them to mail you a form. So this is another very important website. And the last website I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bonus one. It's election data because I'm kind of get wonky on some of this election data. And this is over in this section. And this most of the 10 sections have this in, but you come here to election data. And this gives you a lot of just interesting information. I don't use it much at voter services drives, but again, it will tell you how many registered voters there were in 2025, and you can go back quite a ways. You can look for election results if you're wondering about a particular election and how close it was or something. You can find that. And kind of the sad one on here, it gives you turnout numbers, which for Alabama, I think we all know have been pretty poor lately. But that's another side I just like looking at occasionally, doing some research. So um, let me go back. I went too far. If I can show this again. I'll be glad to take any questions, and there's my information. I'm always glad to take suggestions as far as how to make this better. If there's mistakes, let me know, or any other comments. I'm always glad to take it. So, pending questions, that's what I have to cover.
Thank you,
I'm going to
Brian.
stop sharing. So,
Yeah.
Roger.
So Roger's going to take the other topics, but from what Brian presented, are there any questions from folks online? If you want to raise your hand or come off mute. So, you can always reach us if you look at this again, because you're going to get the video and the slides, and then you can always call back with some other questions, and I'll include Brian and Roger's email so they can answer it directly. And Brian, I really appreciate your stepping through that because it was a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff that still didn't get discussed, but you have to take this one bite at a time. And I think Brian gave us the whole pizza today, so maybe I've had enough to eat. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Yeah,
And
there is a ton of information there. So,
yep. And so, Roger, let me spotlight you now. Just a second. All right. So if you want to share your screen, then I will hand it over to you. Oops. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, thank you for coming to attend this seminar. My name is Roger Ellis. I'm the chairman of voter services of the League of Women Voters at Tennessee Valley. And we'll be talking about get your voter identification ready to roll, how to get a free voter ID, and how to avoid wasting your absentee ballot. The agenda will be talking about getting your voter identification ready to roll. Do you need a star ID? What if I don't have any of these IDs? What to bring to apply for a free Alabama voter ID, application for a free Alabama voter ID, instructions for a free Alabama voter ID, who is not required to provide voter ID, how to avoid waste in the absentee ballot, how to avoid survey results, USPS guideline of mailing ballots, and questions. And if you can, please wait till the presentation is over to ask questions or write them down as we go along. So the first thing we get into is getting voter ID ready to roll. What is a voter ID? A voter ID is what Alabama requires one to vote at a polling location. Now, you've probably seen this list before. It could be a valid Alabama driver's license. That's the number one thing we use. We have Alabama law enforcement, Alabama non-driver ID, Alabama law enforcement agency digital non-ID, the Alabama voter ID, state issue ID, Alabama or any other state. If you don't have an Alabama license, you can use your license from another state. A federal ID, a passport, a valid employee ID from federal government, state of Alabama, county, municipality, board, or any other entity of this state. Student employee IDs from a public or private college, digital student ID from a private college, a valid student or employee ID from a state institution of higher learning, valid military ID, and a valid tribal ID. Now, do we need a star ID to vote? This out of the way. Alabama star ID is optional. It's not required to vote, but it's an acceptable form for voter ID. Secure, trusted, reliable star ID is part of a nationwide effort to improve integrity and security of state-issued driver's license and identification cards, which in turn will help fight terrorism and reduce fraud. In order to comply with the requirements of the Real ID Act of 2005, LA Department of Public Safety developed the STAR ID program. This STAR ID is available only at LA Driver License Examining Office. There are offices located statewide. County operated license will also continue to provide renewal and duplicates for license ID and STAR ID. Effective May 7th, 2025, every air traveler age 18 and over will need a Real ID compliant license, a STAR ID, or another form of identification for domestic air travel. And you can click on this link here and it'll take you to a place where you can download a STAR ID. But if I don't have any of these ideas, well, what you can do, you can obtain a free Alabama voter ID at the following locations. You can send it to the Secretary of State office on 600 Dexter Avenue, Suite E204, Montgomery, Alabama. You can contact Candace Payne, or you can visit the Board of Registrar in your county. What I like to do is go ahead and click on that and you see what happens when you pull that up. These are your county boards. So I live in Madison, so I'll look at my Madison. Let's see. It takes you to your boards. No, I didn't. Well, anyway,
that's an email. I think that's an email. But
okay.
But the address, physical address, you'd have to go there in person.
Yeah. Wait a minute. What to bring to apply for free Alabama voter ID card. Now, if you don't have anything like that was listed, like the Alabama driver's license or student license or tribal license or anything like that, you can actually go to your register office and get a voter ID card. But what you need to bring is a birth certificate, a hospital nursing home record, a marriage record, a state or federal census record, military record, a Medicare or Medicaid document, a Social Security administrative document, certificate of citizenship, an official school record or transcript. Now, what's nice about this, the Secretary of State office has entered into an agreement with the Alabama Department of Public Health whereby a free birth certificate will be provided to the processing issuing agent when a voter needs one of these documents in order to obtain a free Alabama voter ID card. I saw that happen at the register office one day. He asked for his his birth certificate, and they contacted the person, and it came in through the fax machine. Application for free Alabama voter ID. Well, now this application is pretty easy. It's, you fill out your name, your address, your birth date, and they want to ask your gender, your height, your weight, the application date. You have to have one of those documents when you apply for this, and then you sign it, and then they sign it. Now they give you instructions on this, which is kind of strange because it tells it what not to. If you have something, don't bother asking for this. So they ask if you have a valid driver's license, which you don't need to apply for a voter ID if you have that. Non-driver's I card, Alabama voter identification card, and all that. So they just give you instructions of what not to bring to get a voter ID card. Who is required to
You might want to point out, Roger, can you go back and point at the very bottom of that other slide about this, basically the instructions, and then at the very bottom it's like there's a Class C felony if you
Yeah.
if you apply to get this in violation of the instructions.
Any falsification or fraud making this application shall constitute a Class C felony. Who is not required to provide ID prior to voting? Now, voter is entitled to vote by absentee ballot pursuant to the Voting Accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act or any other federal law, shall not be required to produce identification when voting by absentee. And this pertains to the Uniform and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. So what it is, we've been going to nursing facilities or assisted living facilities in Huntsville, and when these people ask for a absentee ballot, we give them one, but they don't have to have a voter ID because of their age and all that. So they don't need one when they fill that out. How to avoid wasting absentee ballot. After November 24 elections, the League of Women Voters surveyed Alabama circuit clerks to understand the issues with voting absentee. Only 11 counties responded. Alabama's absentee election system has a multitude of ways that a voter lose a vote in an election. If a person lives in a different district where they are registered to vote, they will not receive an absentee ballot. If the ballot is lost or has delivery delays, i.e. sending and returning ballot through the mail, the ballot could miss the last delivery date. You keep hearing about this going on in North Carolina almost every day. Voter errors and overlooked items in completing the absentee ballot affidavit envelope will cause ballots to be set aside on election night. So what happens when they look through that affidavit and they see a mistake, they just take that ballot and set it aside. It's not going to get counted. And we put in a few bills. Well, we put the bill in last every 3 years to cure these ballots, but they haven't passed it yet. These kind of issues in every single election. Now, survey results, we asked these counties to keep track of their absentee ballots as they were coming through. And you can see, like, let's look at Madison. They had 16,000. They sent out 16,818. So ballots spoiled before election night. 227 ballots were set aside that night. It's because they made a stupid mistake on the affidavit or getting out of sequence or something minor.
Do you want me to, Roger, you want me to talk this slide? Because I was thinking this. I was just thinking, I apologize, but I know this is kind of this data is kind of confusing, but if you want to talk through it or I can talk it if you'd like.
Well, I mean, we saw that 227 were set aside.
Well, that's different. Sure. That's why I was.
Okay. Well, go ahead and talk about it then.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to just really highlight this data was gathered up from the circuit clerks, the ones that actually responded, and you can look at the first column are all the applications that were submitted for these 11 counties, and you'll notice that Jefferson, we don't have Bessemer here because we never could get data from Bessemer, but when you look at the number of applications that were received, in general, the number that were applications, the number that were sent out matched. You can see in Baldwin County, there was 50 that were rejected. Those were rejected because the person requesting the absentee ballot was not registered where they were requesting. The ballot spoiled before election night. What this is where someone gets an absentee ballot package and they mess up, like marking their ballot or something else that they need to get a new ballot mailed to them. So that's what that number is. And then in this column that says absentee ballots returned by voter, which at the bottom is 60,023. This is the number of ballots for those 11 circuit clerks. They received 60,000 total across the state. But when you look back at the number that were actually sent out, say just pick one. If you picked Baldwin County, for example, the very first line, 8,850 ballots were sent out, and only 8,026 were actually returned prior to election day when they close it. Now, so that tells you there were 824 ballots that never got returned just in Baldwin County. And then when you look at the election results for the tally for the election night at the polling place that's called absentee voting, only 7,771 votes were actually counted. So 8,026 ballots were received in Baldwin County, but there were 255 ballots that were set aside on election night. And so that tells you right now that, there was a big drop off in the number of people who wanted to vote absentee. And then on election night, you still had people who messed up their affidavit envelope, and that's why their ballots were not set aside. And so this is kind of a technical. This is a lot of detailed information, but the basic information is that at the end of the day, out of those 11 counties, you had 8,890 people, 8,890 voters who lost their votes for the November election just in those voting locations. So I'm gonna hand that back to you, Roger.
Okay.
The United States Postal Service is dedicated to making sure election mail is delivered efficiently and securely. To help ensure your mail-in ballot arrives on time to be counted, here's what you need to do. If you choose to vote by mail, plan ahead so you have enough time to complete and send back your ballot by your state's deadline. Always check your state's rules and deadlines for mailing your completed ballot. You can search for individual state election websites online, including through usps.com/votinginfo. Just click the button that says Find Your State Election Website. For domestic, non-military voters using the mail to return a ballot, we recommend that you mail your completed ballot before Election Day and at least a week before the deadline by which your mail-in ballot must be received by your local election office. But know that some states may recommend mailing it even earlier. Again, review your state's requirements and recommendations on mailing ballots to be sure. One more thing to keep in mind about mail-in ballots. In many states, election mail, including ballots, can't be forwarded. So please make sure that your current and correct delivery address is on file with your election office. As in past elections, the United States Postal Service is ready to deliver your ballot on time. But don't delay. If you choose to vote by mail, please mail early.
Any questions? Okay.
All right. So I want to say thank you, Roger, because going through that information is, especially this time of year when we're getting ready for municipal elections, make sure the voter ID, that you have a valid voter ID, but also one of the things that Roger does at all of our voter services events is, we talk to folks about, is your ID up to date and valid? And Roger I've gone with Roger to a lot of the nursing homes, independent living. And when you go to those facilities, you just start realizing a lot of the residents, what we've seen is a lot of the residents, they don't really have someone helping them get their registration up to date. So, but yet they do want to go vote in person. They load up on a bus and they'll go vote. And then at that point, Roger, I guess they would still have to have an ID, and they would also need to have their registration up to date before they can cast an absentee ballot.
Right.
But Roger, thank you. I appreciate you and
Thank
Brian
you.
both. And are there any? I don't know if there's anyone in the audience that has any questions. It's just a lot to digest. All right. Well, you know what? We got done early. Anybody got any questions on any other voting topic? I might stop the recording so we can, if we don't know the answers, but I'm just joking. But all right. Well, I think we're done. And I really appreciate everyone coming in again today. And if you've got suggestions on topics you think we ought to cover on the third Mondays at 2, we would really appreciate any insights on things that you need for there to be some training on, because right now you can go to the LWV Alabama YouTube channel and go under the voter skills training session. And we've been having these trainings. We're almost a full year now of having monthly trainings. So you can go back and pick up topics as you need them. But if there's something we haven't covered, then would love to make sure we address it. All right. Well, I think maybe we're done. And let me turn the recording off.